Good afternoon, FutureMed executives. My name is Dara Bamiboye, and I would like to introduce our very capable team. We'll start with
Mariana Diaz,
Eliana Tauri, Lucy Laka.
We hope that you enjoy this presentation and find it very helpful. So who are we? FutureMed can truly become the future of pharmaceutical drugs. In order for the corporation to expand, spearhead innovation, and create market opportunities, there's a need to evaluate whether FutureMed has the innovative capacity to be market leaders. In summary, it has been put forward to our team that there is a lack of systematic approach to innovation, with a focus primarily on the potential to generate profit. We also understand that the board has struggled to identify and create potential disruptive technologies. We thank the board for tasking our capable team to analyze and provide creative and academically sound recommendations to improve the capacity to achieve disruptive innovation.
Thank you for your comprehensive introduction of the company, Dara. My name is Mariana Diaz, and I will continue the presentation by providing an overview of the internal structure of FutureMed. Firstly, let's look into human resources. FutureMed is led by a group of 7 board members who supervise a senior management team formed by the heads of large departments such as finance, operations, research and development, and marketing. Despite the fact that they've had a relatively successful approach to innovation in the past by holding meetings regularly to discuss new projects and identify their profitability, it is clear that FutureMed is currently lacking a more methodical, proactive, and standardized approach to innovation. Shareholders got used to getting better returns than expected. However, there's always room for improvement, especially if it means even more returns. As an incumbent, FutureMed needs to have a solid understanding of the importance of disruptive innovation and how much more profitable it can be for the business to look into other segments that are otherwise ignored. Recently referred to as the Senior Citizens Club by a surveyed employee, the average age of the senior management group is above 55 years old, which suggests that they may have a more traditional approach to business and therefore a conventional background. So they may not be as open and receptive to innovation as a younger demographic could be. Adding an additional team at corporate level that is fully dedicated to innovation would be ideal for FutureMed, as there is a plethora of small businesses that could revolutionize the industry with new technologies. So it's important to stay on top of potential innovations at all times. In terms of organizational culture, the same survey conducted recently for FutureMed employees has shown a high resistance to change. Part of being disruptive means not only harnessing new technologies, but also implementing new business models and exploiting old technologies in new disruptive ways. And this is hardly possible in such a conservative environment, as it can inhibit change and become the biggest barrier when it comes to being disruptive. It is therefore recommended to educate FutureMed employees of all levels on the importance of being receptive and open to change, as well as encourage them and give them the autonomy to generate ideas and be part of that change. It is important that all levels of the organization understand that in order to stay relevant, FutureMed needs to adapt to the rapid changes that come with innovation. In terms of resource allocation, an important part of the creation of capabilities to cope with change is to allocate resources to potential innovations, which of course includes, but is not limited to, financial resources only. Pulling the relevant people out of the organization to define a new team dedicated to disruptive innovation is the first step of the resource allocation process. But of course, this includes finances as well. And though it can be scary to allocate resources to a project with the uncertainty of whether it's going to work or not, it is highly recommended that FutureMed uses strategic buckets to manage both sustaining and disruptive innovations separately. With strategic buckets, resource levels are defined by senior managers for specific categories of initiatives. These categories represent distinct objectives of the organization. And as senior managers understand those objectives well, they can certainly maintain control over resource decisions. Finally, as mentioned earlier, FutureMed is a large organization with a conservative top-down structure that limits the development and implementation of disruptive innovation. Despite the fact that senior managers are frequently holding meetings to discuss potential innovations, this kind of approach is usually based on completing the innovation activity as soon as possible so that they can get back to their regular activities and do what they do best, which is managing their departments. This is clearly not the best approach. Therefore, it is highly recommended that they modify their business structure to stimulate the development of innovative ideas through a more flexible, participative environment, as sharing knowledge between teams and encouraging participation can actually lead to the generation of more ideas, which create opportunities for innovation.
Thank you, Mariana, for such a great explanation. My name is Lucy Hladka, and I will now examine the external perspective in FutureMed. When looking on the FutureMed's capacity to innovate from the external perspective, we have to evaluate the company's context and its environment. Those include commitments and relationships and regulatory and economic conditions. In this case, we are talking about Australian Department of Health, Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, neighbouring countries such as Indonesia and New Zealand, and other businesses. In Australia, according to the regulation of the Department of Health, all therapeutic goods must be registered on the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods in order to be lawfully supplied. Prescription medicines are under the special regulations. In terms of radiopharmaceuticals, the registration process is not easy and requires specific guidance. ARTG requires detailed product information, which brings a lot of disadvantages for FutureMed as the whole process and all regulations affect future and current investors and relationship with organization suppliers. Particular regulations differ in every country, however, strict regulations and lack of entrepreneurial support impact negatively on innovations. When thinking about investment into developing new radiopharmaceutical, regulations in Australia and neighbouring countries need to be taken into consideration. While Australia has very strict regulations, according to the case study, Indonesia and New Zealand are more open in terms of developing radiopharmaceuticals. In addition, this is still a developing science that few business people understand and feel confident in. Therefore, to find a source of financial resources is difficult. Even though the current situation for FutureMed seems to be a bit tricky, there are options for going along with regulations and still be able to innovate and generate profit. FutureMed is suggested to focus on following. First of all, local legal advice needs to be sought for going along with restrictions. Local governments usually provide a significant support in terms of written guidance or online assistance, such as Australian government does. Networking with suppliers on a regular basis is very important for innovation process as well, as they use different resources and different processes. Next potential connection could be with Australian Radiopharmacy, who provides unique nuclear medicine cold kits and adjuncts. By creating a network of global experts such as scientists or professors and competent lawyers, FutureMed explores new technologies and available processes for innovation in field of radiopharmaceuticals and will be able to easily follow regulatory changes. For FutureMed, the strategic move forward could be a cooperation with Professor Vian Kumar from the University of Sydney, who focuses on designing radiopharmaceuticals. In terms of unwelcoming economic situation for radiopharmaceuticals, FutureMed can negotiate agreement with local suppliers from Indonesia and New Zealand. Indonesia has a great potential for implementing new innovations in the field of nuclear medicine. Useful context while considering to negotiate about agreement with supplier in Indonesia or New Zealand could be World Health Organization, National Nuclear Energy Agency of Indonesia, or World Nuclear Association.
Thank you, Lucy. My name is Dara, and I'll continue the presentation by providing feedback on the innovative capacity within FutureMed and its marketing perspective. Having examined and observed FutureMed, I note that your market research has been conducted solely by the Research and Development Department, who have conducted a focus group activity with the participants just being doctors and physicians. While we can appreciate the team's effort, they themselves have reported that the focus groups have only revealed a limited amount of insight on what the doctors needed. The first thing we need to consider is whether FutureMed has considered all its relevant stakeholders. It is clear that the data needs to include not only the doctors who use the drugs, but the patients the medical product is used by. To expand the stakeholders further, one should consider elements such as hospitals, medical lecturers, health sectors within the government, and even students. An understanding of the potential customer and the emerging market is essential. There are 3 ways in which to obtain clearer and more in-depth data to lead FutureMed to make better product and marketing decisions within the company. These are the use of the customer visit programs, empathetic designs, and leader user processes. The 3 recommendations that we have is to visit the customers using the customer visit program. So this would involve the market researchers visiting doctors and patients in a planned and systematic program. This combination would be an excellent way in which to determine whether a new product or whether market development is required, as this is a great way to reveal more of what the customer requires and possible sources of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. It's also a perfect opportunity to form closer relationships with the stakeholders. The second recommendation is the empathetic designs. So the use of the empathetic design allows the company to better envision the way in which FutureMed could solve problems in the future and further increase its revenue and success. This means that we'll need to evaluate both the doctors and the patients in order to consider a way in which the market would accept the medication correctly. Therefore, it would be beneficial for the team to interview and proceed to witness the way in which the drugs are administered, to further consider the effect on the patient. The next recommendation is the lead user process. Eric von Hippel coined the term lead user innovation in 1986, which is a way to identify a need before it even exists within the market. With the lead user method, you can integrate particularly advanced users into the creation process. In the end, FutureMed will receive a detailed concept for the pharmaceutical products to help the process of redevelopment. It would benefit FutureMed to have a team that has different user profiles that could consider the viewpoint of each stakeholder.
Thanks, Tara. My name is Eliana, and I'm gonna present the last factor that we have analyzed, that is the technology perspective of FutureMed. Although further information related to the IT infrastructure is needed, taking into consideration other factors such as the lack of systematic approach from the management team for the identification or creation of disruptive technologies, plus the difficulty to raise capital for this purpose, it can be assumed that the technology capacity of FutureMed is not in the proper and necessary level to maintain the competitiveness. Therefore, it could be easily overtaken by competitors. Looking into some insights about technology, IT plays a critical role in the competitiveness of the company and is one of the intangible factors with greater difficulty in its management. IT innovation does not only bring new innovative products, but also helps making the business processes more efficient in terms of supply chain and speeding communication, for example. Based on the data gathered, it is recommended the implementation of the following strategies in order to improve the company's IT innovative capacity. First of all, we consider important the FutureMed should know the industry, benchmark technological innovation and information technology strategies to measure the appropriateness of the company's IT capacity against potential competitors. The purpose is to identify where are the weaknesses and keep the business on the cutting edge of the industry. A second recommendation would be to forecast technological trends in the pharmaceutical industry and monitor periodically to detect any changes. Technological forecasts do not necessarily need to predict the precise technology, but it helps you evaluate possible future developments so that manager can make better decisions. FutureMed needs to be quick in identifying a disruptive technology opportunity. The third recommendation, in order to achieve an accurate forecast, it is suggested to implement a database management system. This will allow the company to benefit from quick access to relevant customer behavior-related data, which is ready to analyze. By knowing historical information about the consumer behavior, FutureMed can predict future behavior and get more insights about their needs. A fourth recommendation would be the investment in software systems to integrate business operation. In addition, the investment in state-of-the-art technology for the development of new radiopharmaceuticals products in order to offer new innovative solutions to customers that satisfy their needs. Finally, in case that the investors are reluctant to fund the acquisition of new technology or systems aimed to develop disruptive innovation, we consider that the company could outsource this activity and focus on the commercialization.
As a team, we can see the high level of potential FutureMed has to help others while ensuring the continued growth and success of the company. We ask that you consider and implement the recommendations. Otherwise, you risk losing your market share in a world that is competitive and increasingly innovative. We feel that it would be beneficial that the board allows for a team to spearhead the recommendations offered by our team. We know that with implementation, the future of FutureMed is bright.